It is Friday, July 14th, 9:30 a.m. I'd like to call to order the Community Impact Grants Committee.
Brenham, Livingston, Barron,
Here.
Mackey,
Here.
English.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is approval of minutes. Excuse me. Also want to acknowledge Councilwoman Teratio. Thank you for joining us this morning. Next item is approval of minutes. We have 2A, minutes from May 25th, 2023. Do we have any edits or deletions?
Move to approve. Second.
Madam Clerk, would you?
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
English.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. The next item is approval of minutes from June 13th, 2023. Any changes or deletions?
Move to approve. Second.
Barron,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
English.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Next is adoption of the agenda. Do we have any additions to the agenda from staff or committee members?
Not at this time.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
Barron,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
English.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Next is items for discussion, a fiscal year 2024 grant application review. Previously, the committee met and reviewed our grant application guidelines as well as our actual application itself. That was sent on to the full body and council approved that, and that is currently open right now. Staff was able to host several training sessions, which is great. We had great attendance and has been getting the word out to the public. And so thank you to our communications department as well. At our last committee meeting, the conversation came up about our review process. The Community Impact Grants Committee is a newly formed committee, and we didn't really clarify for sure how we were going to review the applications once they came in, if we were going to follow a previous process or set a new process. And so wanted to have this meeting today to talk about that and solidify a process before the application period closes so that we don't delay the awarding of any of these grants. So I'm going to put out a few options that have been discussed or brought to me by committee members, but definitely want to have this time to have any other options brought to the table for discussion. One option for consideration has been the use of an outside party or a third party source, similar to what the COVID-19 committee has done with ARPA grants. Another option has been for committee members to work together to review all of the applications and make recommendations that way. So I'll open it up for any other options or discussions on the two that I've just presented.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Brennan, you're recognized.
So I like the option of having the third party to review the grants, especially because we do have ARPA funds that are a part of this bucket of funds, and so to stay stay aligned with what we're already doing with the other grants that we have out. I'd like to see a third party, and then also because this is our first round, it does give us an opportunity to kind of get our footing and to see if this is something that we want to do and move forward with a third party, or even to have further discussion about implementing a process that we would have for the grants to be reviewed.
Thank you.
But I do agree with the format that's already us accountable, as well as what we're asking citizens to let them know that funds without any accountability anymore is no longer an option with Richland County. So that keeps.
Thank you, Ms. Barron and Ms. English. Okay. Aaron, go ahead.
Could I'd just like to ask the administration a question to make sure that if we decide to move forward with the third party, would we be able to use the existing third party that we're currently using that are reviewing the ARPA grants as a part of this process?
You recognize, Mr. Brown.
Thank you. And I can have ACA Thomas clarify, but I don't know that this was officially a part of their original, scope of work that we had with them. I'm not sure if it's broad enough, but I can clarify to find out. We do have ACA Thomas here, but we could always ask them if that scope of work allows. But if it's not broad enough, then we would have to go through just another process of acquiring a third-party provider to assist us with this effort.
And I definitely want to hear from ACA Thomas, because I think that just looking at it, because we do have that pot of funds that are part of this, it would be helpful to see if we could, because otherwise, we would be incurring an additional expense for a third-party reviewer, and if we could save the county some dollars, that would be great.
Thank you. Madam Chair? if I may.
You recognize AC.
For the pot of money that is in these grants, which is only $400,000, that we could use some of the original contracted dollars there. This is my theory on it, and I will clarify with the vendor to make sure that this is a possibility and that they can do this. But I do believe that you will be looking at a cost for reviewing those dollars in excess of the 400, because the 400 was in the original scope of work. So you will probably, I can certainly reach out, get a quote for this work, make sure that they can do the timeline, which I feel as though they probably do have the bandwidth to do that. But we would need to probably reduce the amount of funding available to be able to pay for the review of the rest of the money, which is $1.78 million. I would estimate that it would probably be under $200,000.
And so, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, you recognize.
So when you say reduce the pot that is available, would we be reducing it from the 400,000 ARPA or the overall balance of the 1.7?
The overall balance of the 1.78 million, the amount that was coming from the general fund as the 1 mil.
And then would that create a challenge for us as we've advertised that we do have 1.7 available?
I would ask the attorney to speak to that. I think that we can always, from an accounting perspective, it's not an issue. We said we had up to this amount available, but I would ask that
I love it.
I would ask that the attorney perhaps be able to weigh in on that.
I think that part is kind of a finance thing. My real concern is more, I would have to take a look at the contract just to make sure that, like I said, that it's authorized for them to be able to do something that's not in their original scope, and make sure that's our procurement rules are followed and that this doesn't go outside of it. So that's really more my concern than other than the finance part. I'll leave to Lori, but that part is the part that kind of I want to make sure that we do it the right way.
So, and just a final statement. I think that in my thought process, because we already have someone that we're working with, ideally that would be my first go-to. But if I was to make a motion, it would be to really just engage in a third party, not specific to our existing vendor. But in my mind, it makes sense because we are currently working on someone, working with someone.
And I guess I would say, for this reason, I would think that would be in alignment, just simply because we've set an application and ARPA dollars are somewhat mixed into this, and we've kind of put out there, especially with the ARPA recommendations, these guidelines and these procedures that we follow, and it's been a group that has, it's like you're using the same mindset, right? So and now you don't want to take this package and give it to someone else that maybe would look at it in a different lens and maybe not judge the same as fairly as maybe we did some other programs. And so that to me seems like to keep the same mindset judging them would work the best if that's doable, especially within the time frame that we have.
Right, and I think that may be possible. We just have to make sure that it's within the bounds of the already in place agreement.
I do think, and I know Ms. Barron has said this, I just want to reiterate, but I do think, and Ms. English has said it as well, but having the third party this first go round, I think helps to create a process that is, transparent and fair right now for all the applicants as well as for the committee to make sure we are reviewing this the right way this first time and that we're able to set some guidelines and explain applications and dollar amounts. Is that better? So I do think the third party would be the best thing to, and also just timeline. We're a little behind in our schedule, and so I think that would also help. We don't know how many applications we're going to get, and to maybe wait on staff or council members to have to review them all might also delay our ability to get funds out to some of these organizations.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I heard Councilmember Barron communicate that if there were going to be a motion made, one of the potential thoughts that you could, I don't want to get out of my lane, Attorney Wright, is to, as you think about, because it sounds like a next step of action is going to be in order from what I'm hearing to move things along. So you talked about some metes and bounds that you think a third-party provider should be able to do. So I think that your motion potentially should give you those constraints. So that way, if we have to go out and address this differently than we are able to, because the contract currently is written doesn't allow for us an extended scope of work to be performed in compliance with our procurement rules, then whoever is going to be interested in that work understands the timelines associated with what the council needs so that the potential recipients of these funds are not hindered. So my point in saying that to you is you're not going to want a general motion where then if there's a general procurement notice goes out, it's broad and people think they have 45 days or whatever it is. This sounds like it will be a protracted response, which is going to require the county administrator to tell procurement, authorize a protracted time period. So all of those things, I want you to consider that as you think about the motion, if you choose to make one concerning this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. That is helpful. Any other discussion?
Regarding if one were to be made, so if I say move to have a third party review grants, if allowable by contract, utilize the same entity to review the grants, would that be sufficient or enough wiggle room?
Yeah,
I think you would have to say that the same entity that is currently doing the ARPA grants, and so that would limit you to that organization or that group. So if that's what you want to do, but if they can't do it,
protracted procurement process.
So I can authorize.
Yes.
I can authorize that, but in order for the community of individuals who are interested in applying for this work, they need to know that the committee and ultimately the council has a time frame that they want this to happen in, so that if they are going to respond to a potential notice, it can't be, well, we can do it if we had 8 weeks, if the council expected this to be done in 4 weeks. So we would want to basically make sure that we kind of set that parameter around that time frame. And that's what I was trying to highlight.
Can we possibly take this up in two motions, one being the third party and then the other being procurement?
I got one.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir, you
I
recognize.
apologize.
Yes.
As I understand it, our current third-party provider, and I believe the official name is Guidehouse? That's correct. Okay. They are on either or a state co-op or state contract. So in terms of the procurement process, they would have already gone through a procurement process, thereby making them eligible for us to contract with them. So we won't have to have a separate Richland County procurement process because they would have already gone through a process that would be appropriate for us to piggyback off of and use.
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for that right-on-time information. Any other discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
So I started mine a little bit premature, but if it's too much, we can dial back. Move to authorize the administrator to use the third-party vendor, to use a third-party vendor to review grants within the current timeline already set. If the present contract with Guidehouse allows, then use Guidehouse as the third-party vendor.
Second.
Do we need to add in their approval to utilize funds within the current community impact grant budget to pay for any cost?
That will be clear where the funding is coming from.
Councilwoman Barron, can I make a friendly amendment to your motion?
Absolutely.
Everything she said plus to utilize funds that are currently in the community impact grant line item to pay for services of the third-party vendor.
Second.
All right. Recognize Mr. Ratio.
Thank you. And sorry if I missed this detail. Did we establish what the financial impact of hiring a third party would be to the bottom line, to the amount that we would be able to distribute?
So at this point, it has been estimated based on, I guess, previous experience that it's around $200,000 or no more than $200,000.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Is there, so it is the intent that the committee would not meet again until we have the results. Is there any other information staff would need in this motion to go forth and make this happen without us having another committee meeting, except when the results come back and it's time for us to review?
Without trying to be too wordy, we'll have the applicant's information. We have the process. We have the vendor who's been through a process with us, and you would just be waiting on the results. So I don't see that there would need to be another meeting of the committee before you receive those results.
All right, so we had a motion, a second, discussion. Madam Clerk, can you call for the vote? Thank you.
Barron,
Yes?
Mackey,
Yes?
English.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Any other discussion regarding grant application?
Ms. Mackey?
Yes, Ms. Barron.
I think it would be helpful, just for the record, to state the deadline again, just for the applications.
The current deadline for applications is July 31st at 11:59 p.m. All applications are available online via the county's Zoom Grants platform to submit any information. If you need assistance, folks can call county staff for any questions. Mr. Brown, you recognize?
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to take an opportunity to let you all know that, as you're aware, there have been meetings associated with these funds. There has been communication going out, and to date, we've only had 2 applicants. So,
That's okay. That doesn't bother me. I think
well,
people are coming in.
just want you to know. I mean, you reached out to us about, hey, we have folks that need, and you've provided opportunity. So just understand that it's the 14th of the month, and we're looking at 2 applicants, knowing that, and you've had multiple committee meetings and council discussions about funding coming down the pipe process, and there's been communication about, kind of get it done, but it's out there, and we only have 2 applicants that have, at this point, completed and submitted.
Okay, it's halfway through the month. It's the summer. People will get it in before the deadline. It'll be just fine. And when you have an application process that requires additional steps, it's taking people a little time to gather all the information and hit submit. So it'll be just fine. And these programs, I'm sure, have submitted great work, and we can't wait to review them. Any other discussion? Yes, you're recognized, Ms. English.
I just want to just kind of thank you for your vision on this. Yes, ma'am. And I'm sorry, my phone is ringing. But I really do, because in just taking a step and rebuilding the trust and all the things that are out there, it feels good to have a process in place that's fair to everyone. And I just want to thank you for your vision, and just to this committee and the staff for just supporting us in our efforts. So I thank y'all. And I apologize again for my phone.
Okay, well, look,
Just wanted some background music to talk. Just the preacher in her.
thank you, Ms. English. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you all coming in on a Friday at 9:30 to help us get this done for organizations in Richland County. So I appreciate you all as well for sticking with me through this process. I will say we are looking to get another meeting on the calendar, and that next meeting, fingers crossed, we'll have all the results back from applications with rankings, and then be able to make our decisions. We stated in our original timeline that we would be releasing funds in September. So, well, we're at item number 5.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Barron,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
English.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.